Is a draft mock involving only trades. No player names, just trades for each pick, 1 through 32, if he was the general manager for each team. This deal is offered to me, and I'm Andrew Berry. I'm accepting immediately before they can change their mind. 2 reasons. As we have talked about before, the Browns may not be enamored with any player at 6. And if their threshold, if their tier list says we think you can get just around the same kind of player at 6 as we can at 12.
Something just got thrown into the NFL conversation that could quietly change everything for the Cleveland Browns. And it didn't come from some random rumor or social media speculation. It came from a serious breakdown on ESPN, where analysts started floating a draft day trade scenario involving the Browns and the Dallas Cowboys. And the moment that idea hit the air, it instantly felt like more than just content. It felt like a real possibility. Because when you really think about it, this is exactly the kind of move that Andrew Berry might have to consider, whether he wants to or not.
Could it happen? Bill Barnwell thinks there's a chance. He put together a mock trade for every single team at every single pick of the 2026 NFL Draft. So there's 2 options for the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously because we have 2 first-round picks, thanks to that trade with the Los Angeles Rams. So we're going to go.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. The Browns are not as stable as they look on paper. Yes, they have talent. Yes, they've built a roster that should be competitive. But underneath that, there's a layer of uncertainty that hasn't been resolved, and it starts at the most important position in football, quarterback. And in the NFL, you can't hide from that problem. You either solve it or it eventually exposes everything else. So when ESPN throws out a trade idea involving Cleveland and Dallas, it's not just about picks or players, it's about direction. It's about what kind of team the Browns want to be moving forward, because draft day trades, especially big ones, are never random. They are calculated moves that signal intent.
In the mock draft for the Browns at number 6 was a deal that we've kind of talked about in the past, except this involves more than just 2 first-round picks for 2 first-round picks. It gets into the 2027 draft, which I know Earl has his eyes on.
This is where it gets dangerous, because once you start considering a move like this, you're admitting that something needs to change. You're admitting that what you currently have might not be enough. And for a team like Cleveland, that's a big realization. Now, let's break down why the Cowboys are even part of this conversation. Dallas is always aggressive when it comes to maximizing value. They understand the power of draft capital. They understand timing. And they're not afraid to make moves if it puts them in a better position, whether that's now or in the future. So if they're being linked to a trade with Cleveland, it means there's something on both sides that makes sense. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Trades like this don't happen unless both teams feel like they're getting closer to something. The Cowboys might be looking to gain assets, reposition themselves, or add depth. The Browns, on the other hand, might be looking for clarity. And that's the key word here, clarity. Because right now, Cleveland doesn't have it, not fully. You've got a complicated quarterback situation involving Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. And while there's talent there, there's no clear, unquestioned leader who has fully locked down the role long-term. And that creates hesitation. It creates inconsistency. It creates a situation where the team can't fully commit to a direction.
But there are plenty of other situations where it's like, okay, we have a player that we like, and then you get a call a couple picks away.
Without further ado, let's get into Field Yates' mock draft for the Browns, okay? 2-round mock, 3 picks, and at that pick 6, it is Carnell Tate coming to Cleveland, the Ohio State Buckeye wide receiver. A lot of people have mocked this. A lot of people have said the Browns would go Freeling here or different receiver or left tackle.
Because in the NFL, hesitation is costly. Teams that win consistently are decisive. They know who their guy is. They build around him. They move forward with confidence. But when you're stuck in between, trying to figure things out, it slows everything down. And that's why this trade idea matters so much, because it represents a potential shift from uncertainty to action. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Andrew Berry is known for being patient, calculated, and strategic. He doesn't make impulsive decisions. He looks at the long-term picture. So if a deal like this is even being discussed in serious circles, it means there's a logic behind it that goes beyond surface-level analysis. And this is where young front offices usually make a mistake. They wait too long. They convince themselves that things will improve on their own, that development will fix problems. But in reality, sometimes you have to force change. You have to make the move before it's obvious to everyone else.
I think the circumstances for why we're picking in, why our first pick, at least as of today, is in the third round are different. Last year, we felt compelled to move back because we liked the group of players, obviously starting with Martin.
Make the move too early and you risk giving up too much. Make it too late and you miss your window. And right now, the Browns are right in that delicate space where timing could define their next few seasons. Now let's talk about what a trade like this could actually mean, because it's not just about swapping picks or adding a player. It's about reshaping the roster. It's about deciding what matters most. Are you prioritizing immediate impact, or are you thinking about the future? Here's the part nobody is talking about. Draft picks are currency in the NFL. They represent potential, flexibility, and long-term value. When you trade them, you're making a statement. You're saying we believe in what we're getting right now more than what we might get later. And that's a big risk.
That is a higher grade at their position of your position of need. Kind of fits exactly what the Browns are trying to do here. And Tate just seems like the safest option. The top three receivers seem like safer hits than a Freeling who still, needs some developmental work.
But it's also a necessary one sometimes. Because if the Browns truly believe they're close to being a contender, then standing still might actually be more dangerous than taking a risk. That's the reality of competitive windows in the NFL. They don't stay open forever. This is where it gets dangerous. Because if Cleveland misreads their situation, they could either overcommit too early or hesitate and fall behind. And in a conference filled with strong teams, falling behind even slightly can make a huge difference. Now bring Shedeur Sanders back into the conversation because his situation is quietly connected to all of this. If the Browns were completely confident that he was their long-term answer, would they even entertain a major trade scenario? That's a question people aren't asking enough. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This might not be about replacing Shedeur or Watson directly. It might be about forcing a resolution, creating a situation where the team has to make a clear decision. Because sometimes competition alone isn't enough. Sometimes you need a structural change to push things forward. And this is where young players usually make a mistake. They see moves like this as threats instead of opportunities. But in reality, this is where you prove yourself. If Shedeur can step up, handle the pressure, and show he's the guy, then no trade, no rumor, no speculation will matter. This is where it gets dangerous, because if he doesn't, the team will move on. That's how the NFL works. It's not personal, it's business. Now flip to the Cowboys side again, because they're not just passive in this scenario. If they're involved, it means they see value. And Dallas is not a team that makes moves without a purpose. They're always thinking about positioning, about maximizing what they have. So if a deal is being discussed, it means both teams believe they can come out ahead. And that's what makes it realistic. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Trades like this can redefine how teams are viewed overnight. If Cleveland makes the right move, they go from being a team with questions to a team with direction. If Dallas benefits, they strengthen their position without overextending. But if it goes wrong, the criticism comes fast. This is where it gets dangerous, because there's no safe outcome with big trades. You either win or you face consequences. And for a GM like Andrew Berry, those consequences are tied directly to his reputation. Now zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this is what really matters. The Browns are at a turning point. They've built a foundation, but they haven't taken that next step yet. And in the NFL, getting stuck in that middle zone is one of the worst places to be. You're not bad enough to rebuild, but you're not good enough to compete at the highest level, and the only way out of that zone is to make bold decisions. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This trade idea is not just about this year, it's about the next 3 to 5 years. It's about setting a direction that the team can follow with confidence. And this is where it gets dangerous, because once you commit to a direction, there's no easy way to reverse it. You have to live with that decision. So now we come back to the core question. If this draft day trade scenario is real, even as a possibility, should the Browns actually do it? Because if they pull the trigger, they're sending a message. They're saying, we're not waiting anymore. We're taking control of our future. But if they don't, they're betting that what they already have is enough to figure things out. And based on everything we've seen so far, that's not a guarantee. So this becomes more than just a trade discussion. It becomes a test of leadership, a test of vision, a test of whether Andrew Berry is willing to take the kind of risk that defines great teams. Because in the NFL, the teams that win aren't always the safest ones. They're the ones that make the right move at the right time, even when it feels uncomfortable.